So, Ron, your research shows that advisors, most of them spend less than 2% of revenue on marketing, and they don't spend a lot of time on digital client acquisition. It's one of the lowest ranked when they're talking, when they fill out surveys and show that how are you finding new clients? But yet you've built LifeWorks mainly through digital marketing, right?
hmm
So I just want to hear from you. What are the majority of firms out there or advisors out there missing when it comes to client acquisition? And how should we be thinking about doing things differently moving into the future?
Well, there's that loaded question there. I'm going to try and break it apart into some different things. So, strategy is deciding to set yourself up to play a game that you believe you can win. And when I launched LifeWorks, one of the things that I recognized was the vast majority of advisors and firms in the industry were, this was middle of 2017. It's still really true today. Were running marketing playbooks or growth playbooks that were essentially like teach advisors how to get referrals, rubber chicken dinners, mailers, things like this. Where I started at Northwestern Mutual, like referrals was basically it, right? They just pounded into us like ask for referrals, ask for referrals, ask for referrals.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with referrals. However, I found that it was really unpredictable, right? You could ask for ask referrals 100 times in a row and get goose egged. So when
Mhm.
I set up LifeWorks, one of the things that I believed we should be able to do is put our message in front of a targeted audience using digital marketing. So every other industry's been doing this. I think something like 80 or 90% of ad spend is now digital, right, today. And yet the vast majority of advisors and firms, and it's not my research, so TD Ameritrade had their FA Insight study, the Schwab RIA benchmarking study still, kind of tracks this through, that digital marketing channels and acquiring clients, that was, generally last on firms' priority lists,
Mhm.
right? Lots of reasons why. One, firms that are already established have had 70% of their growth come from just market appreciation over the last decade,
Mhm.
right? And that came from a McKinsey study. It's also out in several other white papers. That's also not mine, but that's a fact, right? So I think lots of reasons go into why. One, independent broker dealers, large firms, even some of these mega RIA like aggregators are essentially a consortium of hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands for these big IBDs of different brands. And so it's not in their best interest at the firm level to do digital marketing because they have nothing to market.
Mm.
So that's left to the individual advisor, right? And most of us as advisors are not marketers by background. Maybe we have some tech background, but it just seems like a complete, black box, right? How
Mhm.
you do cookies and tracking and retargeting and all these things. So I think there's a lot of reasons why advisors have stayed away from it. There's a lot of reasons why firms haven't necessarily invested heavily into it. But if one just steps back and looks at it, it is the best place to put a message in front of who might be your ideal client. So it's definitely worth the investment. And while it shouldn't be the case, if you do step into marketing and do it in with a reasonably cogent plan, right, and stay disciplined at it, it will make you stand out from everybody else because it's not like all 250,000 advisors in the United States are running ads on Meta or Google or, X,
Mhm.
right, or YouTube. So even out of our population of 250,000 advisors, maybe 10%, probably way less than that, are doing digital advertising. So you're
Mhm.
setting yourself up to play in a space where there's lots of advertisers, but there's not a lot of advertisers in our industry that are there, right?
It can feel like with some of the things that you were talking about with ads and Meta and or Instagram and Facebook and all of that. What's like the first step? If we haven't done any of this, we're interested in it. Um, what should we be? It just seems daunting to
Yeah.
want to get into it. What's your suggestion? How do we get into it?
It's going to sound like a long way to get there, but having a really clear written statement about who your best ideal client would be, right? I've asked lots of advisors over the years if they have an ideal client persona or if they have an ideal client. And the answer is generally yes. And it's like, well, is that documented and written down? Well, no, why would I do that? Well, because if you have it documented and written down, you can hand that to somebody who's a competent digital marketer and say, this is the person I'm trying to get in front of. That competent digital marketer should then say, okay, that's not going to be the problem. What is the message now that you want to say to this person that's going to get their attention? So I think the place to start is not trying to go on to Meta or YouTube or whatever and take courses on how to run digital ads. I think that's not where you start. First step is having a clear written description of who your best client is. Then the next piece of this is saying, do you have clear, clear understanding, and I would also say written down, because this is very important. Do you have a written list of the biggest challenges and problems that group or that niche faces today, right? And we talked about this in the academy this week. The basic kind of storyline of marketing is this escape and arrival, right? You have to be able to identify where your prospect is at today, what their pains are, challenges, things that they don't like, and then paint a future, right? You got to cross this bridge, this future state that they want to get to, right? So your steps would be have a clear written description of your ideal client. That would include what are their biggest pains, challenges, problems, right? And then your third step is having a written statement for, I help plumbers prepare for selling their business and retiring. So you build this simple statement around like, what is it that you do that helps that ideal client get to their desired future state? Then you go out and decide how you're going to like hire somebody maybe to help you do this, or potentially you try and, do some early testing and experimenting on your own.
Okay. So 1, pick your people. 2, what's their biggest pain? 3, how you help them. The problem actually related to a video, look for the video that's ChatGPT prompts. There's three prompts that I did. One of them is the features to benefits translator. So it's easy to talk about the tactics and strategies that we use. Tax loss harvesting, we do that. But what does that actually mean in terms of benefits to people? Check out that prompt and start either GPT or whatever, Claude, use AI to start thinking through what you do in a different way. That's really helpful when I did it. But yeah, that falls right in line with what you're saying. Pick your people. What's their problems? How do you help them? That's the start. And then to me, it sounds like who, not how, right? You can figure out how. You could spend time. Some of the things in the academy kind of show you how to do that. But if you're really smart, you'll find the who, and you'll use what you just discovered and send that to them to start it out. Okay. That makes sense.
That's right.
Anything else on that topic worth sharing? I know there is a lot.
It's getting easier and easier to find competent digital marketing freelancers. And I get asked this question too. Well, like, hey, I've tried this or I've tried that. What I found to be the gap for most advisors when I've talked to them, and even firms, is they don't really have that clear ideal niche. They don't know the people, they don't know the problem, and they don't know what their product is or their benefits that they're trying to sell. Once you have that, maybe it takes you, 3, 4, 5 tries to find a good contractor to get started, right? What you're looking for is somebody who specializes in demand generation. That would be the key phrase. I'm looking for a freelance demand gen professional to help me run digital ads on Meta.
Okay.
That would be how I would go out searching for that.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Ron.